Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the big screen in front of him. The screen showed thousands of enemy ships coming toward Earth. These were not small ships, but huge ones that looked like floating cities in space. Each ship was made of some kind of crystal that sparkled and glowed with a scary blue light. There were 3,000 of these ships, and they all belonged to the Zephyrian Empire. Jake had been waiting for this day for many years. He knew that sooner or later someone would try to take over Earth and all the human colonies. The Zephyrians were known across the galaxy as the strongest military force. They had conquered 17 different star systems and enslaved billions of aliens. Now they wanted to add humanity to their list of slaves. Captain Lisa Bennett walked up to Jake with a small tablet in her hands. She looked worried but also excited. Lisa had been serving under Jake for 8 years and she trusted him completely. She knew that Jake always had a plan even when things looked hopeless. "Sir, the message from their leader just came through," Lisa said as she handed him the tablet. "They want us to surrender in 72 hours, or they will destroy every human city and colony." Jake read the message slowly and then started to smile. The smile grew bigger until he was almost laughing. Lisa and the other crew members on the bridge looked at each other with confusion. Their admiral was smiling while reading a threat that could end their entire species. "Sir, is everything okay?" asked Lieutenant Danny Foster, who was standing at his station. Danny was young and new to space combat. This was his first real battle, and he was scared like any normal person would be. "Everything is perfect, Danny," Jake said as he handed the tablet back to Lisa. "Tell me, how many ships do we have ready to fight right now?" Lisa checked her other tablet and said, "We have 47 ships total. The heavy cruiser Defiance is our biggest ship. We also have 2 destroyer groups led by Commander Ryan Palmer and Commander Kate Sullivan. Our newest ship is the Dreadnought Retribution with Captain Alex Turner in charge." Danny looked even more worried now. "Sir, we only have 47 ships and they have 3,000. Should we call for help from the outer colonies?" Jake walked over to the big window that showed the stars outside. He put his hands behind his back and stood there for a moment, thinking. The crew waited for his answer because they all knew Jake was the smartest military leader humanity had ever produced. "Danny, do you know why I am not worried about their 3,000 ships?" Jake asked without turning around. "No, sir, I do not." Jake turned around, and his smile was even bigger now. "Because they made the biggest mistake any enemy can make. They brought their entire fleet to one place. Every single ship they have is right here in our solar system." Commander Beth Williams had been captured by the Zephyrians 3 months ago when her ship was on a spy mission. She was sitting in a prison cell on one of their ships, listening to their conversations through a translator device hidden in her ear. She could hear the Zephyrian officers talking about how easy it would be to defeat the humans. The Zephyrian leader, Supreme Admiral Vexathari, was telling his officers that humans were primitive and stupid. He said human weapons were old-fashioned and weak. He thought human ships were slow and poorly built. He was completely sure that this battle would be over in less than 1 day. Beth smiled to herself as she listened to this. If only these aliens knew what surprise was waiting for them. She had seen the secret weapons that human scientists had been building. She knew about Project Starbreaker and the new technology that could do impossible things. Back on Jake's ship, the crew was getting ready for battle. Lieutenant Commander Julie Adams was checking all the weapon systems. Chief Engineer Sam Rodriguez was making sure the engines were working perfectly. Everyone had their job to do, and they all did it with confidence because they trusted their Admiral. "Sir, should we tell the crew about our new weapons?" asked Captain Alex Turner over the communications system from his ship. "Not yet, Alex," Jake replied. "Let them think we are just very confident. The surprise will be worth the wait." Jake looked at the enemy fleet again and counted the ships. 3,000 ships full of soldiers who thought they were about to conquer Earth. 3,000 ships that had no idea what human creativity and intelligence could accomplish when pushed to the limit. "Lisa, send a message back to Supreme Admiral Vexathari," Jake said. "Tell him that humanity accepts his challenge. Also, Tell him we thank him for bringing all his ships to one convenient location." Lisa typed the message and sent it to the enemy fleet. Within minutes, they received an angry reply from the Zephyrian leader. He could not believe that humans were not surrendering immediately. Jake laughed out loud when he read the reply. His laughter filled the bridge, and soon other crew members started laughing too. They were about to show the galaxy that humans were not the weak, primitive species that everyone thought they were. Supreme Admiral Vexathari looked at the human message on his screen and could not believe what he was reading. The humans had actually accepted his challenge instead of surrendering like every other species had done. He was standing in the command center of his flagship called the Eternal Dominion, which was the biggest and most powerful warship in the galaxy. Vexathari had 4 arms, like all members of his species, and right now all 4 arms were moving in anger. His skin was changing from blue to red, which meant he was getting very upset. He had conquered so many worlds that he had stopped counting after the 15th one. Every species had begged for mercy when they saw his fleet, but these humans were different. "War Leader Kethron, come here immediately," Vexathari called to his second in command. Kethron was smaller than Vexathari, but still very dangerous. He had personally led ground battles on 12 different planets and had never lost a single fight. "Yes, Supreme Admiral. What are your orders?" Kethron said as he approached the command station. "Look at this message from the humans," Vexathari said, while pointing at the screen. "They say they accept our challenge and they thank us for bringing all our ships to one place. What kind of response is this?" Kethron read the message and started to laugh. His laughter sounded like metal scraping against stone. "Supreme Admiral, these humans must be completely insane. They have 47 primitive ships against our 3,000 advanced warships. Perhaps their brains are too small to understand numbers." In the prison section of the ship, Commander Beth Williams was listening to everything through her hidden translator. She was sharing a cell with Captain Greg Matthews, who had been captured during the same spy mission. Both of them were trying not to laugh at what they were hearing. "Greg, do you think we should tell them about our new weapons?" Beth whispered very quietly. "No way," Greg whispered back. "Let them find out the hard way. This is going to be the most embarrassing defeat in galactic history." The Zephyrians had been studying human technology for many years, but they only knew about the old weapons that humans used to have. They knew about kinetic cannons that shot metal projectiles and basic energy shields that could stop laser beams. They had no idea that human science had advanced far beyond anything they could imagine. Vexathari called up files on human military history on his computer. He looked at pictures of human ships and weapons from 20 years ago. Everything looked primitive and simple compared to Zephyrian technology. The human ships were small and boxy, while Zephyrian ships were huge and elegant. "Look at this data Kethron," Vexathari said while showing him the files. "Humans still use projectile weapons that shoot pieces of metal. They still use chemical fuel for their engines. Their shields can barely stop basic laser fire. How did such a backward species even manage to travel between stars?" Kethron studied the information carefully. "It says here that humans are known for being stubborn and refusing to give up even when they cannot win. Perhaps that explains their strange response to our ultimatum." "Stubbornness will not help them against superior firepower," Vexathari replied. "Begin preparations for the attack. I want this over quickly so we can move on to conquering the next system." What neither of the Zephyrian leaders knew was that the human military files they were looking at were 20 years old. Human technology had changed completely in the last 5 years thanks to a secret project that only a few dozen people knew about. The weapons they were about to face had never been used in combat before, and most aliens thought they were impossible to build. On Earth, deep underground in a facility hidden beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Amanda Clark was working on the final preparations for humanity's secret weapon. She had been the lead scientist on Project Starbreaker for 5 years, and now her work was about to be tested in real combat. "Dr. Clark, how much time do we need for final calibration?" asked General Paul Harrison, who was in charge of military operations for the project. "Give me 6 more hours and everything will be ready," Amanda replied, while adjusting controls on a machine that hummed with strange energy. "The dimensional fold generators are working perfectly. Each of our ships now has access to weapons that can attack reality itself." The general looked at the test results on his tablet. Even he did not fully understand how the weapons worked, but he had seen what they could do during testing. The test footage showed enemy targets simply disappearing from existence as if they had never been there at all. "Amanda, are you absolutely sure these weapons will work against Zephyrian shields?" the general asked. "Positive," Amanda replied with confidence. "Their shields are designed to deflect energy beams and absorb kinetic impacts. Our weapons do not use energy or kinetic force. They attack the fabric of space and time directly. There is no known defense against dimensional warfare." Meanwhile, on the TFS Retribution, Captain Alex Turner was briefing his crew about the upcoming battle. He could not tell them exactly how their new weapons worked because that information was still classified, but he wanted them to be ready for anything. "Listen carefully, everyone," Alex said to his officers in the briefing room. "The weapons we are about to use are unlike anything that has ever been used in space combat before. When we fire them, you might see things that look impossible. Do not let this distract you from your duties." Lieutenant Commander Julie Adams raised her hand. "Sir, can you give us any hint about what these weapons actually do?" Alex smiled and said, "Let me put it this way, Julie. After today, the Zephyrians are going to wish they had stayed home." Dr. Amanda Clark wiped the sweat from her forehead as she made the final adjustments to the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. She was working in a laboratory that was buried 3 miles underground beneath the Rocky Mountains. The entire facility was so secret that it did not appear on any map, and only 50 people in the world knew it existed. The weapon she was building was called a dimensional fold generator, and it could do things that most alien scientists thought were impossible. Instead of shooting energy beams or metal projectiles, this weapon could attack the basic structure of reality itself. It could make enemy ships simply stop existing by removing them from the fabric of space and time. "How are we looking, Amanda?" asked General Paul Harrison as he walked into the laboratory. The general was a tall man with gray hair who had been in charge of secret military projects for 15 years. He had seen many amazing weapons during his career, but nothing like what Amanda had created. "We are almost ready, General," Amanda replied while checking numbers on her computer screen. "All 47 of our ships now have dimensional fold generators installed and ready to use. The Zephyrians have no idea what is about to hit them." The general looked at the test footage on a nearby monitor. The video showed a target ship that was there 1 second and completely gone the next second. There was no explosion or debris field. The ship simply ceased to exist as if it had never been built in the first place. "Amanda, I have to ask you this one more time," the general said seriously. "Are you absolutely certain that these weapons will work against alien technology? If they fail, our entire species could be enslaved or destroyed." Amanda stopped working and looked directly at the general. "Sir, I have run every possible test and simulation. Zephyrian shields are designed to protect against energy weapons and kinetic weapons. They have no defense against attacks that target space and time directly. When we fire these weapons, the enemy ships will simply disappear." Meanwhile, aboard the TFS Retribution, Captain Alex Turner was meeting with his senior officers to discuss the upcoming battle. He could not tell them all the details about their new weapons because the information was still classified, but he wanted them to understand how important this fight would be. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alex said to the group gathered in his ready room, "in a few hours we are going to face the largest enemy fleet in galactic history. They outnumber us more than 60 to 1. Every other species that has faced them has been conquered or destroyed." Lieutenant Commander Julie Adams looked worried. "Sir, how can we possibly win against such overwhelming odds?" Alex smiled and said, "Julie, do you remember what we learned in military academy about human history? Humans have been winning impossible battles for thousands of years. We won because we never fought fair. We always found ways to use our enemies' strengths against them. Chief Engineer Sam Rodriguez nodded in agreement. Captain, I have been working on our new weapon systems for months. I can tell you that when we open fire, the Zephyrians are going to see things they never imagined were possible. That is exactly right, Sam, Alex replied. Our enemies think they know everything about human technology because they have been studying our old weapons for years. They have no idea that we have been developing something completely revolutionary. Back on the Zephyrian flagship, Supreme Admiral Vexathari was holding his own meeting with his war council. All of his senior officers were gathered around a large table that showed a three-dimensional map of the solar system. The map showed every human ship as a tiny red dot surrounded by thousands of blue dots representing the Zephyrian fleet. As you can see, the situation is completely in our favor, Vexathari said while pointing at the map. We have more than 3,000 ships against their pathetic 47 vessels. This will be the shortest conquest in Imperial history, war. Leader Kethrun pulled up detailed files about human weapons and technology. Supreme Admiral, our intelligence reports show that humans still use primitive kinetic weapons and basic energy shields. Their most powerful ship carries weapons that are 50 years behind our current technology. Excellent, Vexathari replied. How long do you estimate it will take to destroy their entire fleet? No more than 30 minutes, Supreme Admiral Kethrun answered confidently. Probably much less than that. Human ships are poorly armored and their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. None of the Zephyrian officers knew that the intelligence reports they were looking at were completely outdated. The human military had been very careful to hide their new technology from alien spies. All the weapons tests had been conducted in secret locations, and all the scientists working on the project had signed agreements to never talk about their work. In the prison section of the Eternal Dominion, Commander Beth Williams and Captain Greg Matthews were listening to the Zephyrian meeting through their hidden translator devices. Both of them were trying very hard not to laugh at what they were hearing. Beth, these aliens have no idea what they are walking into, Greg whispered as quietly as possible. I know, Beth whispered back. I have seen the test footage of our new weapons. When Admiral Morrison gives the order to fire, it is going to look like magic to these Zephyrians. The two captured humans knew that they might not survive the upcoming battle, but they also knew that their sacrifice would not be in vain. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn that humanity was not the primitive, weak species that they thought we were. Earth was about to show the galaxy that humans could create weapons that broke the laws of physics. Dr. Amanda Clark finished her final checks and turned to General Harrison. Sir, all systems are green. The dimensional fold generators are ready for combat deployment. Each of our ships can now fire weapons that will make enemy vessels simply vanish from reality. The general nodded and picked up his secure communication device. Admiral Morrison, this is General Harrison. Project Starbreaker is complete and ready for deployment. You have permission to use the new weapons at your discretion. Jake Morrison received the message on his ship and smiled. He had been waiting 5 years for this moment. Now it was time to show the Zephyrian Empire that humanity was not going to be conquered by anyone. It was time to teach the galaxy that humans were the species you did not want to make angry. The Zephyrian Imperial fleet moved into attack formation as they approached Earth. 3,000 massive warships arranged themselves in perfect geometric patterns that had been used to intimidate enemies for hundreds of years. Each ship was over 2 miles long and covered in crystal armor that sparkled with deadly beauty in the light of the sun. Supreme Admiral Vexathari stood in the command center of his flagship and watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The human fleet looked like tiny insects compared to his mighty armada. He had used this same formation to conquer 17 star systems, and now he was about to add the 18th to his collection. Open a communication channel to the human admiral, Vexathari ordered his communications officer. I want to give them one final chance to surrender before we destroy them completely. The main screen flickered and showed Admiral Jake Morrison sitting calmly in his command chair. Vexthari was surprised to see that the human looked completely relaxed, instead of terrified like every other enemy commander he had faced. "Human Admiral," Vexthari said in his most intimidating voice. "You can see the power of the Imperial fleet arrayed before you. We have conquered civilizations far more advanced than yours. Surrender now and your people will be allowed to serve the Empire as slaves. Refuse, and we will turn your cities into ash and your colonies into graveyards." Jake looked directly at the alien commander and smiled. "Vexthari, I have to admit your ships are very impressive, very big and shiny. I can see why other species were scared of them." "Then you will surrender," Vexthari demanded. "Not exactly," Jake replied while his smile grew even bigger. "You see, we humans have a saying that you might want to learn. Size is not everything." Vexthari felt his anger rising. No enemy had ever spoken to him with such disrespect. "You dare to mock the Imperial fleet with your pathetic 47 ships?" "Actually, I want to thank you," Jake said cheerfully. "You have saved us a lot of time and trouble by bringing your entire fleet to one convenient location. Usually we would have to hunt down enemy ships one by one across multiple star systems, but you have gathered them all right here for us." Before Vexthari could respond, Jake gave a hand signal to his weapons officer. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. You are cleared to engage the enemy. Show them what Earth thinks of their empire." The human fleet suddenly opened fire, but instead of the primitive weapons the Zephyrians expected, something impossible began to happen. Reality itself started to tear apart around the alien ships, as the dimensional fold generators created attacks that targeted the fabric of space and time. Commander Kate Sullivan fired the first shot from her destroyer. The weapon created a ripple in space that moved toward a group of Zephyrian cruisers. When the ripple reached them, the ships simply vanished as if they had never existed. There was no explosion or debris field. One moment there were 12 enemy ships, and the next moment there was empty space. "What kind of weapon was that?" screamed war leader Kethrun as he watched 12 of his ships disappear from the tactical display. Captain Lisa Bennett fired her heavy cruiser's main guns and created a gravitational anomaly that crushed an entire squadron of Zephyrian battleships into a point smaller than an atom before dispersing them into quantum particles. The alien crews did not even have time to send distress signals before they ceased to exist. Aboard the TFS Retribution, Captain Alex Turner gave the order to fire the ship's most powerful weapon. Julie launched reality torpedoes at the enemy flagship. Lieutenant Commander Julie Adams pressed the firing button and watched as 6 torpedoes streaked toward the Eternal Dominion. These were not normal torpedoes that exploded on impact. These weapons created cascading dimensional rifts that would erase sections of the target ship from reality. The torpedoes reached Vexthari's flagship and began tearing holes in space around it. Parts of the massive ship simply stopped existing as the dimensional rifts spread across its hull. The crystal armor that had protected the ship for centuries was useless against weapons that attacked on a quantum level. "Impossible!" Vexthari shouted as he watched his ship being eaten away by forces he could not understand. "No species possesses weapons that can attack space and time directly. This violates every known law of physics. Shields are failing," reported his tactical officer. "We are losing entire sections of the ship to some kind of dimensional attack. Our weapons cannot target the enemy torpedoes because they exist partially outside normal space." Jake Morrison opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian fleet. "Attention all Zephyrian ships. You are being attacked by dimensional fold weapons that your shields cannot stop. These weapons target the basic structure of reality itself. You can surrender now, or you can continue to watch your ships disappear one by one." More human ships opened fire, and the results were devastating for the Zephyrians. Commander Ryan Palmer's destroyer squadron created a series of space-time distortions that made an entire wing of enemy dreadnoughts simply cease to exist. Chief Engineer Sam Rodriguez had done his job perfectly, and all the new weapons were working exactly as designed. Dr. Amanda Clark watched the battle from her underground laboratory. Through a secure video link, she could see her dimensional fold generators working perfectly as they erased enemy ships from existence. Years of theoretical work and dangerous experiments were finally paying off in the most important battle in human history. General Harrison, "The weapons are performing beyond our best projections," Amanda reported. "The Zephyrian shields are completely useless against dimensional attacks. They designed their defenses to stop energy and kinetic weapons, but they never imagined anyone would develop reality-based warfare." On the battlefield, the Zephyrian formation was falling apart as their ships disappeared faster than they could. Count them. Entire squadrons were being erased from existence by weapons that seemed to violate everything they knew about science and technology. Vexthari realized that his mighty fleet was being destroyed by an enemy he had completely underestimated. These humans had developed weapons that were centuries ahead of anything the Empire possessed. The species he had thought was primitive and weak was actually the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy. "All ships retreat immediately," Vexthari ordered desperately. "Fall back to the outer system and prepare for emergency. Jump to hyperspace." But it was already too late for most of his fleet. In less than 2 hours, the greatest armada in galactic history had been reduced to scattered debris and expanding clouds of quantum particles. The battle was over in less than 3 hours, and the results were beyond anything the Zephyrians could have imagined in their worst nightmares. Of the 3,000 ships that had entered the Sol system, only 237 were still intact, and most of those were badly damaged. The rest had been erased from existence by weapons that attacked reality itself. Supreme Admiral Vexthari sat in what remained of his command center aboard the Eternal Dominion and tried to understand what had happened to his invincible fleet. Half of his flagship was simply gone, as if it had been cut away by an invisible knife. The missing sections had not been destroyed or blown apart. They had been removed from the universe entirely. "War Leader Kethrun, report on fleet status," Vexthari said in a voice that shook with fear and disbelief. Kethrun looked at his tactical display with horror. "Supreme Admiral, we have lost 87% of our fleet. 2007. 163 ships have been completely destroyed. The remaining ships are requesting permission to retreat immediately." "How is this possible?" Vexthari demanded. "We had overwhelming numerical superiority. Our ships are the most advanced in the galaxy. How could a primitive species like humanity defeat us so completely?" Before Kethrun could answer, a communication signal came in from the human fleet. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared on the main screen, and for the first time in the battle, he was not smiling. His expression was serious and professional, like a teacher explaining something to a student who had failed an important test. "Supreme Admiral Vexthari," Jake said calmly, "I hope you now understand that humanity is not the primitive, weak species you thought we were. Your intelligence reports about our technology were 20 years out of date. We have been developing weapons that your scientists probably think are impossible." Vexthari could barely speak, but he managed to ask, "What kind of weapons are these? How do you attack space and time directly? No species should possess such technology." "You are correct that most species do not possess this technology," Jake replied. "But humans are not most species. We are the civilization that looks at impossible problems and finds ways to solve them. We are the people who turn science fiction into science fact." The Zephyrian admiral looked around his damaged bridge and realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was wrong. For hundreds of years, his species had conquered other civilizations through superior firepower and advanced technology. Now they had encountered a species that was so far ahead of them that the gap could not be measured. "What do you want from us?" Vexthari asked in defeat. "I want you to go home and tell your emperor exactly what happened here today," Jake answered. "I want you to explain that Earth is not available for conquest. I want you to make sure that every species in your empire understands that humanity is not interested in being anyone's slaves." Jake leaned forward in his chair and his voice became harder. "But most importantly, I want you to spread the word that any alien civilization that threatens human colonies or tries to attack Earth will face the same fate as your fleet. We have the technology to erase entire armadas from existence, and we will use it to protect our people." Captain Alex Turner's voice came over the communication system from the TFS Retribution. "Admiral Morrison, should we pursue the retreating ships and finish them off?" "Negative, Alex," Jake replied without taking his eyes off Vex Thari. "Let them go. They need to survive so they can tell others what they learned here today. Dead messengers cannot deliver warnings." Dr. Amanda Clark watched the end of the battle from her underground laboratory and felt a mixture of pride and relief. Her dimensional fold weapons had worked perfectly and saved humanity from slavery or extinction. But she also knew that this victory would change everything about Earth's relationship with the rest of the galaxy. "General Harrison," Amanda said, as she began shutting down the weapon control systems, "we need to start mass production of these weapons immediately. Word of this battle is going to spread quickly, and other hostile species might decide to test our defenses." General Harrison nodded in agreement. "I am already contacting our manufacturing facilities. Within 6 months, every human ship will be equipped with dimensional fold generators. We also need to start developing even more advanced weapons in case someone figures out how to defend against these." Meanwhile, the surviving Zephyrian ships were preparing to jump to hyperspace and flee the Sol system. Many of the alien crews were in shock from watching their comrades simply vanish from existence. They had never seen anything like the weapons humanity had used against them. Commander Beth Williams and Captain Greg Matthews were finally released from their prison cell as the damaged Zephyrian flagship prepared to retreat. A group of alien guards escorted them to an escape pod that would take them back to the human fleet. "I cannot believe what I witnessed today," one of the Zephyrian guards said as he prepared to launch their escape pod. "Your species possesses weapons that seem like magic to us. How long have you had this technology?" Beth smiled as she strapped herself into the escape pod. "We have had it just long enough to use it when we needed it most. Humans are very good at keeping secrets when we have to." The escape pod launched and carried the 2 human prisoners back to Admiral Morrison's fleet. As they flew through space, they could see the massive debris field that was all that remained of most of the Zephyrian armada. Pieces of crystal hull plating drifted silently between the stars, like the fragments of broken dreams. Jake Morrison addressed his entire fleet over the communication system as the last Zephyrian ships disappeared into hyperspace. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we have sent a message to every would-be conqueror in the galaxy. Earth is not just another world to be enslaved. We are the species that creates the impossible and makes it look easy." The Admiral paused and looked out at the star field where the enemy fleet had been just hours before. "From this day forward, any alien civilization that threatens humanity will learn the same lesson the Zephyrians learned today. We are not the weak, primitive species that everyone thinks we are. We are the people who rewrite the laws of physics. When those laws get in our way, throughout human space, the news of the victory spread quickly. Every colony and space station celebrated as they received reports of the battle. Commander Ryan Palmer sent a message to all the outer worlds that simply said, "The Empire came to conquer humanity. Humanity taught them that some jokes write themselves." The laughter of Earth echoed across the stars, and the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the galactic political landscape had completely changed. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together to develop defenses against humanity's dimensional weapons. The fear of Earth's military power had created the largest alliance in galactic history. On the planet Zarian 3, representatives from 47 different civilizations gathered for an emergency summit. The meeting was being held in secret because many of the Attending species were traditional enemies who had never worked together before. The only thing that united them was their shared fear of human expansion. High Chancellor Morden of the Zerion hegemony stood at the center of the massive conference chamber and addressed the assembled delegates. Fellow beings, we have all heard the reports from the Battle of Sol. The humans possess weapons that our greatest scientists cannot understand or duplicate. If they decide to expand their territory, we will all face the same fate as the Zephyrian Empire, Ambassador Zektar. From the Vegan Trade Confederation raised one of his 6 arms to speak. High Chancellor, our intelligence networks have confirmed that Earth is building hundreds of new warships. Each vessel carries enough dimensional weapons to destroy entire fleets. We must assume they are preparing for aggressive expansion. That is not necessarily true, interjected Counselor Yilnara from the Andorian Republic. Our diplomatic contacts on Earth suggest that humans prefer peaceful trade relationships over military conquest. Perhaps we are overreacting to their defensive preparations. High Chancellor Morden activated a holographic display that showed human space and all the nearby star systems. Counselor Yilnara, even if the humans claim to be peaceful, their very existence changes the balance of power in this sector. Any species that possesses reality-based weapons is a threat to every other civilization, regardless of their stated intentions. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison was reviewing intelligence reports about the secret alien alliance. Human. Spy networks had detected increased communication traffic between former enemy species, and several suspicious diplomatic meetings had been observed. Captain Lisa Bennett brought him the latest surveillance data. Sir, our agents have confirmed that at least 50 different species are coordinating their defensive preparations. They are sharing technology and military intelligence for the first time in recorded history. Jake studied the reports carefully. This is exactly what I was afraid would happen. Our victory over the Zephyrians was so complete that we scared everyone else into working together against us. Should we be concerned about this alliance, sir? Lisa asked. Probably not from a military standpoint. Jake replied. Even if they combine all their fleets, they still cannot match our dimensional weapons, but I am worried about the political implications. We do not want the entire galaxy to see us as the primary threat to galactic peace. Dr. Amanda Clark had been working on new defensive technologies in her underground laboratory. She knew that other species would eventually find ways to counter humanity's dimensional weapons, so she was developing countermeasures to protect Earth from future attacks. General Paul Harrison visited her facility to review the latest research projects. Amanda, what progress have you made on defensive applications of dimensional technology? I have successfully created a dimensional shield that can protect our ships from reality-based attacks, Amanda replied while showing him test results on her computer. The shield works by creating a stable fold in space-time around our vessels. Any dimensional weapon that hits the shield will be deflected back at the attacker. The general looked impressed. How long will it take to install these shields on our entire fleet? 6 months for our current ships, and all new vessels will have the shields built in during construction, Amanda answered. But I am also working on something much more ambitious, a planetary defense grid that can protect entire star systems from dimensional attacks. On the Outer Rim Trading Station, Deep Space 7, Captain Greg Matthews was gathering intelligence about alien reactions to humanity's growing military power. The station was a neutral meeting place where representatives from dozens of species came to conduct business and share information. Greg sat in a cantina and listened to conversations at nearby tables. 3 Rigelian merchants were discussing the impact of human technology on galactic trade routes. 2 Centauri diplomats were arguing about whether their government should seek an alliance with Earth or join the growing anti-human coalition. A Zerian military officer approached Greg's table and sat down without being invited. Human, I have a message for your government from High Chancellor Morden. I am not a government representative, Greg replied calmly. I am just a ship captain on leave. Nevertheless, you will deliver this message, the Zarian officer said while placing a data crystal on the table. The High Chancellor offers your species a choice. Agree to limit your military expansion and share your dimensional technology with other civilizations, or face the combined might of the Galactic Defense Alliance. Greg picked up the data crystal and looked at it thoughtfully. That sounds like a threat to me. Are you sure you want to threaten the species that destroyed the Zephyrian Empire in 3 hours? The Zarian officer's skin changed color, which indicated he was becoming nervous. The Alliance has over 15,000 ships from 47 different species. Surely even your dimensional weapons cannot defeat such overwhelming numbers. Would you like to find out? Greg asked, with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Back on Earth, President Margaret Wilson was meeting with her military advisors and diplomatic team to discuss how to respond to the growing alien alliance. The president had been in office for only 2 years, but she was already dealing with the most significant foreign policy crisis in human history. Madam President, said Secretary of Defense Robert Chen, our intelligence indicates that this Galactic Defense Alliance is primarily motivated by fear rather than genuine hostility. Most of the member species just want assurance that we will not attack them. Then why not give them that assurance? Asked Secretary of State Karen Thompson. We could sign non-aggression treaties with all the peaceful species and isolate the genuinely hostile ones. Admiral Morrison participated in the meeting via video link from his flagship. Madam President, I recommend caution in dealing with this alliance. Even if their current intentions are defensive, they could easily become offensive if they think they have found a weakness in our defenses. President Wilson considered all the advice before making her decision. Admiral Morrison, I want you to arrange a demonstration of our latest weapons for selected alien observers. Not an attack, but a controlled test that shows exactly what our dimensional technology can do. Sometimes the best way to prevent a war is to make sure everyone understands the consequences of starting one. Dr. Amanda Clark received orders to prepare a special demonstration of humanity's most advanced weapons. She would create a test scenario that would show alien observers exactly what Earth's military could accomplish without actually attacking anyone. This demonstration needs to be impressive enough to discourage aggression, but not so threatening that it starts a war, Amanda told her research team. We want to show them our power without making them think we are planning to use it against them. The stage was being set for a confrontation that would determine whether humanity would be accepted as a peaceful member of the galactic community or feared as a threat that needed to be eliminated. The demonstration that would change galactic history forever was scheduled to take place in the empty Proxima system exactly 1 year after the Battle of Sol. President Margaret Wilson had invited representatives from every major alien civilization to witness what human technology could accomplish. The event would either establish Earth as a respected member of the galactic community or trigger the largest war the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded a fleet of 50 human ships that represented the most advanced military technology ever created. Each vessel carried dimensional fold weapons that could erase matter from existence and quantum shields that could deflect reality-based attacks. The newest ship in the fleet was the TFS Infinity, which carried experimental weapons that could remove entire star systems from the universe. High Chancellor Mordoon arrived in the Proxima system aboard his flagship along with representatives from the Galactic Defense Alliance. The Alliance fleet consisted of 1,200 ships from 47 different species. It was the largest gathering of alien vessels in recorded history, and every crew member was nervous about facing the humans who had destroyed the mighty Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Morrison, came the voice of High Chancellor Morden over the communication. System, the Alliance representatives are ready to observe your demonstration. We hope this display will help us understand your true intentions regarding galactic expansion. Jake appeared on the main screen of every ship in both fleets. High Chancellor Mordoon and honored representatives, thank you for accepting our invitation. Today you will see exactly what human technology can accomplish. More importantly, you will understand why Earth seeks peaceful relationships rather than military conquest. Dr. Amanda Clark was aboard the TFS Infinity, monitoring the demonstration from the ship's advanced laboratory. She had spent months preparing. This display and every detail had been carefully planned to send the right message to the alien observers. Dr. Clark, all weapon systems are ready for the demonstration, reported Captain Alex Turner from the ship's bridge. The target asteroids have been positioned, and our dimensional sensors are calibrated for maximum visibility. The demonstration began with the TFS Liberty firing a single reality torpedo at an asteroid that was roughly the size of a small moon. The weapon created a cascading dimensional rift that slowly erased the entire asteroid from existence over the course of 30 seconds. The alien observers watched in silence as something that had existed for millions of years simply stopped being real. As you can see, Jake explained over the communication system, our reality torpedoes can remove any target from existence, regardless of size or composition. The asteroid you just watched disappear contained enough iron and nickel to build 1,000 starships. Now it exists nowhere in this universe. Next, Commander. Kate Sullivan demonstrated the fleet's defensive capabilities by creating a dimensional shield around her destroyer and then firing a reality torpedo at her own ship. The weapon struck the shield and was reflected back toward empty space, where it created a rift that led to nowhere. Our defensive technology is equally advanced, Jake continued. Human ships can protect themselves from any known weapon, including our own dimensional attacks. Any species that tries to use captured human technology against us will find that their weapons simply do not work. The alien representatives were beginning to understand that they were not just observing advanced weapons, but technology that operated on principles their scientists had never imagined. High Chancellor Morden sent a private message to his fleet commanders, telling them to prepare for immediate retreat if the demonstration turned into an attack. For the final part of the demonstration, Dr. Amanda Clark activated the TFS Infinity's experimental quantum cascade weapon. This device could create dimensional rifts on a scale that had never been attempted before. The target was an entire asteroid field containing thousands of rocks ranging from pebbles to mountain-sized boulders. Honorable observers, Jake announced, you are about to witness the full potential of human dimensional technology. What you will see represents the absolute limit of our military capabilities. The quantum cascade weapon fired and created an expanding sphere of dimensional distortion that slowly engulfed the entire asteroid field. Everything within the sphere simply ceased to exist as if it had never been created in the first place. In less than 5 minutes, an asteroid field that had existed for billions of years was completely erased from reality. The alien observers sat in stunned silence as they tried to comprehend what they had just witnessed. A single human ship had casually eliminated an entire asteroid field using a weapon that attacked the fundamental structure of the universe itself. High Chancellor, Jake said as the demonstration concluded, I hope this display has answered your questions about human military capabilities. As you can see, we possess the technology to eliminate any threat to Earth or our colonies. We can erase individual ships, entire fleets, or even whole star systems if necessary. High Chancellor Morden found his voice after several minutes of shocked silence. Admiral Morrison, your technology is beyond anything we thought possible. But why show us this if you claim to seek peaceful relationships? Because, Jake replied, the best way to prevent a war is to make sure everyone understands what the consequences would be. We have shown you our power, so that you will never doubt our ability to defend ourselves. But more importantly, we have shown you that we could conquer the galaxy if we wanted to, and we choose not to. President Wilson's voice joined the conversation. From Earth. Honorable representatives, humanity offers the galaxy a simple choice. You can trade with us as friends and allies, or you can leave us alone to develop our colonies in peace. But if any species threatens Earth or attacks human settlements, You now know exactly what our response will be. Ambassador Kelly Roberts, who had been observing from a diplomatic vessel, added, "The Earth government is prepared to sign non-aggression treaties with any peaceful civilization. We will share our non-military technology and work together on scientific research projects. All we ask in return is to be treated with the same respect we show to others." High Chancellor Morden conferred with the other alliance representatives for nearly an hour before responding. "Admiral Morrison, the Galactic Defense Alliance hereby formally recognizes Earth as a sovereign power and requests immediate negotiations for a comprehensive peace treaty. We also request that you consider sharing some of your less advanced technology to help defend against genuinely hostile species." Jake smiled for the first time since the demonstration began. "High Chancellor, we would be happy to discuss those possibilities. Earth has always preferred cooperation over conquest." Over the following months, the galaxy settled into a new balance of power, with humanity recognized as the dominant military force, but also as a peaceful civilization that preferred trade to warfare. The Galactic Defense Alliance was dissolved and replaced with the Galactic Cooperation Council, which included Earth as a founding member. Dr. Amanda Clark continued developing new technologies, but focused on defensive applications and scientific research rather than weapons of mass destruction. The dimensional fold generators that had won the war were adapted for peaceful purposes, like faster-than-light communication and advanced space exploration. The story of how humanity laughed at the Zephyrian Empire's ultimatum and then casually destroyed their entire fleet became the most famous tale in galactic history. It was told and retold across 1,000 worlds as an example of what happened when someone underestimated the species from the small blue planet that had once seemed so primitive and harmless. Years later, when new alien civilizations made contact with the galactic community, the first thing they learned was a simple rule that every spacefaring species now understood. Never threaten humanity, because humans were the people who had turned science fiction into reality and then used it to rewrite the laws of war itself. 3 weeks after the Battle of Sol, the news of humanity's victory had spread across the entire galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Every species that had ever heard of the Zephyrian Empire was talking about the impossible defeat of their mighty fleet. The story grew larger with each telling, until it became the most famous military victory in galactic history. On the Zephyrian homeworld of Zephos Prime, Emperor Varthek sat on his crystal throne and listened to Supreme Admiral Vexthari's report with growing disbelief. The Emperor had ruled the galaxy's largest empire for 50 years and had never heard of a military defeat this complete and devastating. "You are telling me that a single human fleet destroyed 90% of our armada using weapons that attack?" "Reality itself," Emperor Varthek said in a voice that echoed through the throne room like thunder. "Yes, my Emperor," Vexthari replied, while keeping his eyes focused on the floor. "The humans possess technology that our scientists say should be impossible to create. They can make our ships simply cease to exist by attacking space and time directly." The Emperor stood up from his throne and began pacing back and forth across the massive chamber. His forearms moved in patterns that showed he was deep in thought. For decades, he had believed that the Zephyrian Empire was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, but now he was learning that humans were centuries ahead of them in weapons technology. "How many ships do we have left in our entire fleet?" the Emperor asked. "Approximately 8,000 ships scattered across 17 star systems, my Emperor," Vexthari answered. "But if the humans decide to attack our colonies, we have no defense against their dimensional weapons." Emperor Varthek stopped pacing and looked directly at his defeated admiral. "Send a message to the human government immediately. Tell them that the Zephyrian Empire formally requests a peace treaty. Offer them whatever they want in exchange for a promise not to attack our worlds." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison was dealing with communication requests from hundreds of alien governments who suddenly wanted to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. Species that had ignored Earth for decades were now sending urgent messages offering trade agreements and military alliances. Captain Lisa Bennett brought him a tablet containing the latest batch of diplomatic messages. Sir, we have received formally surrender offers from 6 different empires and alliance requests from 43 independent worlds. The Andromedans want to hire us as military consultants, and the Centauri Federation is offering to share all their star charts in exchange for a non-aggression pact. Jake looked through the messages and shook his head in amazement. 3 weeks ago, most of these species thought we were primitive barbarians who barely deserved notice. Now they are all afraid that we might decide to conquer them. Should we accept any of these offers, sir? Lisa asked. Set up meetings with the peaceful species that want trade agreements, Jake replied. But make it clear that we are not interested in conquering anyone. We just want to be left alone to develop our colonies in peace. Dr. Amanda Clark was working around the clock in her underground laboratory to mass-produce dimensional fold generators for the growing human fleet. The government had approved construction of 500 new warships, and every one of them would be equipped with reality-based weapons. General Paul Harrison visited the facility to check on production progress. Amanda, how many ships can we equip with the new weapons by the end of the year? At current production rates, we should have enough generators to arm 700 ships, Amanda replied while checking her manufacturing schedules. But I recommend that we also begin development of even more advanced weapons. Other species will eventually figure out how to defend against dimensional attacks. What did you have in mind? The general asked. Amanda smiled and pulled up plans for a new weapon system on her computer. I call it the Quantum Cascade Bomb. Instead of erasing individual ships, it can remove entire fleets from existence simultaneously. One bomb could eliminate 1,000 enemy vessels in a single attack. On the planet, Rigel 7. Ambassador Kelly Roberts was meeting with representatives from 12 different alien governments who wanted to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. The meeting was being held in a massive conference center that had been hastily converted to accommodate species with widely different environmental needs. Honorable humans, said Ambassador Trelvok from the Rigelian Republic, our government wishes to offer a mutual defense treaty between our species. We will provide you with detailed star charts of the Outer Rim territories in exchange for protection against hostile empires. Ambassador Roberts consulted her notes before responding. The Earth government appreciates your offer, but we are not looking to become the galaxy's police force. We prefer peaceful trade relationships over military alliances, a representative from the Tau Ceti Confederation spoke up next. Ambassador Roberts, our species has been fighting a defensive war against the hegemony for 30 years. We have heard that human weapons can make enemy fleets disappear completely. We are willing to pay any price for access to this technology. I'm sorry, but our advanced weapons technology is not for sale, Kelly replied firmly. However, we would be happy to discuss trade agreements for conventional goods and services. Back on Earth, Captain Alex Turner was overseeing the construction of the new TFS Vengeance, which would be the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. The ship was 3 times larger than any previous human vessel and carried enough dimensional fold weapons to destroy entire star systems. Lieutenant Commander Julie Adams walked up to Alex as he watched the construction crews installing the ship's main weapon systems. Captain, the quantum resonance cannons are being installed ahead of schedule. This ship will be able to create dimensional rifts large enough to swallow entire moons. Good work, Julie, Alex replied. I have a feeling we are going to need every advantage we can get. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and there are probably other hostile species out there who think they can succeed where the Zephyrians failed. Chief Engineer Sam Rodriguez joined them on the observation deck overlooking the construction area. Captain, I have been thinking about our next generation of weapons. What if we could create dimensional rifts that are permanent instead of temporary? We could literally remove star systems from the universe. Alex looked thoughtful. That might be going too far, Sam. We want to defend ourselves, not become the monsters that other species have nightmares about. The news of humanity's victory continued to spread throughout the galaxy, and with each retelling, the story became more legendary. Some species began worshipping humans as gods of war, while others started preparing their own defenses in case Earth decided to expand its territory through conquest. On the mining world of Kepler 900, alien workers stopped their excavation operations to listen as their supervisor read the latest news report about the Battle of Sol. The supervisor was a member of the Vegan Trade Guild and had been following the story since it first broke 3 weeks earlier. According to this report, the humans destroyed the Zephyrian fleet using weapons that erase matter from existence, the supervisor announced to the gathered workers. The empire that conquered 17 star systems was defeated in less than 3 hours. One of the miners raised his hand and asked, "Do you think the humans will come here next?" "I do not know," the supervisor replied. "But I suggest we all be very polite if any human ships ever visit our system.